My in-laws didn't know I could see their group chat when my mother-in-law accidentally screen shared during our video call. I was sitting at my home office desk on a Wednesday afternoon when my mother-in-law Diane called for our weekly video chat about planning my wife Sophie's surprise birthday party next month. She'd been insistent about these planning calls, which I'd found touching since Sophie and I had only been married for 18 months. Diane's face appeared on my screen, her reading glasses perched on her nose, her silver hair pulled back in her usual neat bun. "Trevor, can you see me all right? I want to show you the venue options I found." She was clicking around on her screen, clearly trying to pull up a website or document. Then suddenly, her entire screen appeared on my monitor through the screen share function she must have activated by accident. But instead of venue photos, I was looking at a group chat called Operation Homecoming. The chat had 6 members: Diane, my father-in-law Robert, Sophie's sister Claire, Sophie's brother Marcus, and 2 names I recognized as family friends, Linda and Gregory. The most recent message, sent just 3 minutes ago by Diane, made my blood run cold. "Trevor just logged on for our call. Remember, act normal. Phase 3 starts this weekend when we plant the hotel receipt in his car." I sat frozen, staring at my screen while Diane continued fumbling with her computer, oblivious that I could see everything. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched more messages scroll into view while Diane tried to figure out how to share the right window. Claire had written, "Mom, make sure you keep him on the call for at least 20 minutes. Marcus needs time to make the duplicate key at the hardware store." Robert's message from an hour ago read, "The private investigator confirmed Trevor's routine. He goes to the gym every Monday and Thursday from 6 to 8. That's when we move the items into the storage unit under his name." I couldn't breathe, couldn't process what I was seeing. My in-laws, the people who'd welcomed me into their family with open arms, who'd given a heartfelt speech at our wedding about how happy they were that Sophie had found someone like me, were running some kind of operation against me. Diane's voice broke through my shock. "Trevor, are you still there? My computer is being difficult. Can you see anything?" I forced my voice to sound normal, even as my hands shook. "No, your screen is frozen on my end. Maybe try restarting the share?" She muttered something about technology and started clicking again. I quickly grabbed my phone and started taking photos of my computer screen, capturing every message I could see in that group chat before she fixed her mistake. The chat history went back months. I scrolled up rapidly with my mouse, reading fragments of messages that made my stomach turn. Linda had written 6 weeks ago, "I confirmed with my friend at the bank. If we can prove Trevor has a gambling problem, Sophie can get the marriage annulled on grounds of fraud. She'll keep her entire trust fund." Gregory's response, "I have a contact who can create betting slips and casino receipts. How much activity do we need to show?" Robert had replied, "Enough to prove he married her for money and hid a serious addiction. We need at least $50,000 in fabricated losses." I took photo after photo, my phone camera clicking silently as I documented everything. Claire had written 3 weeks ago, "Sophie still doesn't suspect anything. She actually thinks Trevor is working late when he goes to the gym. This is going to break her heart, but it's for the best. Mom and Dad are right. We need her back home where she belongs." My wife's sister was helping orchestrate something that would devastate Sophie, and she thought it was for the best. The casual cruelty of it made me want to throw my phone across the room. But I kept photographing, kept documenting, kept my face neutral as Diane finally figured out how to switch her screen share to the actual venue website. "There we go. Sorry about that, Trevor. Technology and I don't always get along." Diane smiled warmly at me, the same grandmother smile she'd given me countless times over family dinners. Now it looked like a mask hiding something vicious underneath. "So, here are 3 possible venues for Sophie's party. What do you think?" I forced myself to look at the venue photos she was showing me, to make appropriate comments about capacity and catering options, all while my mind raced. Phase 3 starts this weekend. They were going to plant a hotel receipt in my car. They were creating fake gambling records. They had a private investigator following me. They were making a duplicate key to my house. This wasn't just family members who didn't like me or didn't think I was good enough for Sophie. This was a coordinated conspiracy to destroy my marriage and frame me as some kind of con artist who'd married Sophie for her trust fund. The trust fund I didn't even know existed until 6 months into our marriage when Sophie's accountant mentioned it during a dinner party. I'd grown up middle class and worked as a software engineer making decent money. The idea that I'd married Sophie for wealth was insane. We'd met at a coffee shop when she'd accidentally grabbed my laptop thinking it was hers. We'd laughed about it, exchanged numbers, and fell in love over 3 months of late-night conversations and weekend hikes. Diane was still talking about venue options, her voice cheerful and engaged, asking my opinion on whether Sophie would prefer an outdoor garden setting or an elegant ballroom. I played along, making suggestions, agreeing to split the cost of deposits, acting like everything was normal. All while the group chat sat minimized on her screen, occasionally showing a new message notification that she didn't see, but I could spot as a small pop-up in the corner. After 23 minutes, Diane said, "Well, I think we have a plan. I'll book the garden venue and start working on the guest list. Same time next week?" I agreed and ended the call. The moment her face disappeared from my screen, I pulled up the photos on my phone. 36 images of that group chat, documenting months of planning and conspiracy. I uploaded them immediately to 3 different cloud storage accounts and emailed them to myself with a timestamp. Then I sat at my desk, trying to figure out what to do next. My first instinct was to call Sophie, to tell her what her family was doing. But something stopped me. Claire's message kept echoing in my head. Sophie still doesn't suspect anything. Did that mean Sophie didn't know about the conspiracy? Or did it mean something else? Could my wife be in on this too, playing the innocent while her family did the dirty work? The thought made me feel sick, but I couldn't dismiss it. Sophie and I had been happy, or so I thought. She'd seemed genuinely in love, genuinely committed to building a life together. But her family clearly wanted her back home, wanted me out of the picture. What if Sophie had been having doubts and mentioned them to her parents? What if this whole operation had Sophie's quiet approval? I spent the next hour going through the photos more carefully, reading every message I'd captured. The plan was elaborate and had been in development since before our first anniversary. Robert had written 8 months ago, "Sophie won't leave him on her own. She's too loyal. We need to give her undeniable proof that Trevor isn't who he claims to be. Then she'll come back to us willingly." Diane's response, "I agree. We can't force her, but we can show her the truth about his character, or what will look like the truth. Once she sees he's been lying about gambling, about other women, about his past, she'll have no choice but to leave him." The methodical way they discussed manufacturing evidence against me was chilling. These weren't crimes of passion or spontaneous acts of family protectiveness. This was calculated, systematic, and designed to be airtight. They'd even discussed potential legal challenges, with Linda noting that her lawyer friend had advised them on how to make fabricated evidence admissible in a potential annulment case. I needed to talk to someone I could trust, absolutely, someone outside the family who could give me objective advice. I called my best friend Nathan, who was a criminal defense attorney. We'd been friends since college, and he knew Sophie and her family well, having attended our wedding and several family gatherings since. Nathan answered on the 3rd ring, and I could hear traffic noise in the background. "Trevor, what's up? I'm just leaving the courthouse." I told him I needed legal advice urgently, that something had happened involving Sophie's family, and could we meet somewhere private. Nathan's tone shifted immediately from casual to professional. "Come to my office in an hour. Don't discuss this over the phone if it's serious." When I arrived at Nathan's office, he closed the door and gestured for me to sit. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos, watching his expression change from curious to concerned to outright alarmed as he scrolled through the images. He spent 15 minutes reading through every message I'd captured, occasionally zooming in to read details, making notes on a legal pad. Finally, he set my phone down and looked at me with the serious expression he usually reserved for his most difficult cases. "Trevor, this is conspiracy to commit fraud at minimum, possibly identity theft, depending on how they're creating these fake records in your name. The storage unit in your name is particularly concerning because that suggests they're planning to plant illegal items or stolen goods to implicate you in crimes." Nathan pulled up a fresh document on his computer and started typing. "We need to document everything immediately. I want timestamps, detailed notes about how you discovered this, and we need to preserve that screen share evidence with metadata intact. When did you say this happened?" I told him it was less than 2 hours ago. Nathan nodded and continued typing. Good. The sooner we document, the stronger your case. Now here's the hard question. Do you think Sophie knows? I'd been dreading that question. I don't know. The messages suggest she doesn't, but I can't be sure. Her sister, Claire, wrote that Sophie doesn't suspect anything, which could mean Sophie is being kept in the dark, but it could also mean she knows and is just acting normal around me. Nathan stopped typing and looked at me directly. You need to find out, but carefully. If Sophie is involved, confronting her could give the family time to destroy evidence and adjust their plans. If Sophie isn't involved, you're going to devastate her by revealing that her entire family is conspiring against you. Either way, this is going to blow up your marriage. He wasn't wrong. Even in the best-case scenario where Sophie was innocent, learning that her parents, siblings, and family friends had been plotting against her husband for months would destroy her relationship with them. She'd be forced to choose between her family and me, and that choice would leave scars regardless of what she decided. Nathan leaned back in his chair and tapped his pen against his legal pad. Here's what I recommend. We need to gather more evidence before you confront anyone. The messages you have are damning, but they reference specific actions that haven't happened yet. The hotel receipt, the storage unit, the fake gambling records, the duplicate key. If we can catch them in the act of planting evidence or creating fraudulent documents, we have an airtight case for criminal prosecution. I felt my throat tighten. You're talking about letting them continue their plan? Just watching while they frame me? Nathan's expression was sympathetic but firm. I'm talking about building a case so strong that they can't talk their way out of it or claim the messages were taken out of context. Right now, you have screenshots of a group chat. They could claim it was a joke, a fictional story, a misunderstanding, but if we document them actually planting that hotel receipt in your car this weekend, if we track them renting a storage unit in your name, if we catch them creating fake gambling slips, then we have proof of intent followed by action. That's conspiracy plus fraud, and it's prosecutable. I hated the idea of waiting, of going home to Sophie tonight and pretending everything was fine while her family plotted against me. But Nathan was right. I needed more than screenshots. I needed evidence of actual crimes being committed. Over the next hour, Nathan and I developed a strategy. I would act completely normal, continue my regular routines, and let the family believe their plan was proceeding undetected. Meanwhile, Nathan would hire a private investigator of our own to document the family's activities. We'd install hidden cameras in my car to catch them planting the hotel receipt. We'd monitor my credit and public records for any attempts to open accounts or rent storage units in my name. And we'd be ready to intervene the moment they crossed the line from planning into action. Before I left Nathan's office, he asked me one more time about Sophie. You need to decide soon whether to tell her. Every day you wait is another day of lying to your wife, and that's going to be hard to recover from if she's innocent. I promised I'd figure it out, but honestly, I had no idea how to handle that part. When I got home that evening, Sophie was in the kitchen making dinner, her dark hair pulled up in a messy bun, wearing one of my old college t-shirts and leggings. She smiled when she saw me, came over to kiss me hello, and asked about my day. I told her about a problem I'd solved at work, about the annoying traffic on the way home, about nothing important. She told me about her day at the art gallery where she worked as a curator, about a difficult artist she was dealing with, about her plans to reorganize the contemporary collection. We had the kind of easy, comfortable conversation we'd always had, and I searched her face for any sign of deception, any hint that she knew what her family was doing. I saw nothing but my wife, the woman I'd fallen in love with, talking about her day. That night, lying in bed with Sophie curled against me, her breathing slow and steady in sleep, I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out how I'd ended up here. 18 months ago, I'd married the love of my life, thinking I was gaining a family who cared about me. Now I was caught in a conspiracy I barely understood, unsure if I could even trust my own wife. Nathan's investigator, a woman named Joyce Crawford, called me the next morning while I was at work. She'd already started preliminary surveillance on Diane and Robert's house and had some concerning updates. I watched Claire arrive at your in-laws' house this morning at 8. She was carrying a laptop and what looked like a file folder. She stayed for 90 minutes, and when she left, Robert left with her. I followed Robert to a UPS store where he spent 20 minutes inside, then to a hardware store. I couldn't get close enough to see what he was doing without being spotted, but the timing matches what you saw in those messages about making a duplicate key. My heart sank. It was really happening. This wasn't some elaborate misunderstanding or dark joke. My in-laws were actively working to destroy my marriage, and they were doing it right now while I sat in my office, pretending to focus on code reviews and team meetings. Joyce continued, I've also run preliminary background checks on all the family members involved. Your mother-in-law Diane worked as a paralegal for 20 years before retiring. Your father-in-law Robert is a retired accountant. They're both intelligent, methodical people who would know how to build a paper trail and make fabricated evidence look legitimate. The family friend Linda works in banking, which gives her access to financial systems and knowledge of how to manipulate records. Gregory works in real estate and property management, which explains how they'd know how to rent a storage unit in your name. This isn't amateur hour, Trevor. They've assembled a team with exactly the skills needed to frame you effectively. I thanked Joyce and told her to keep monitoring them, then sat at my desk feeling the walls close in. These people had known me for 2 years, had shared holidays and family dinners with me, had toasted my marriage to their daughter. And they'd been planning this for months, using their professional expertise to systematically destroy my life. Why? That was the question I couldn't answer. I'd never done anything to them. I loved Sophie, provided for her, supported her career, made her happy. What had I done to make them hate me enough to orchestrate this elaborate destruction? Was it really just about getting Sophie back home? Or was there something else I didn't understand? Friday night, Sophie mentioned that her mom wanted to have Sunday brunch with just the two of them, some mother-daughter time. I encouraged her to go, even though I knew it was probably part of the family's coordination efforts. After Sophie went to bed, I checked the hidden camera I'd installed in my car earlier that day. Nathan had hired a tech specialist to set up 3 tiny cameras with motion sensors, positioned to capture anyone approaching or entering my vehicle. The cameras fed to an app on my phone with cloud backup, so even if someone found and destroyed the cameras, we'd still have the footage. Saturday morning, I told Sophie I was going to the gym for my usual workout. She was planning to spend the day at the gallery preparing for a new exhibition opening next week. We kissed goodbye, and I drove to the gym, parked in my usual spot, and went inside. But instead of working out, I sat in the gym's cafe with my laptop, watching the camera feeds from my car on my phone. At 9:15 a.m., I watched a silver sedan I recognized as Claire's pull into the parking lot. My sister-in-law got out, looking around nervously, and walked quickly to my car. She tried the door and found it locked. Then she pulled something from her pocket, my duplicate key, the one Marcus must have made, and unlocked the driver's side door. I watched through 3 different camera angles as Claire climbed into my car, looked around the interior, and then pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket. She opened my center console, placed the paper inside carefully beneath some napkins and old receipts, and then closed it. She checked her surroundings again, climbed out, locked the door, and walked quickly back to her car. The entire operation took less than 90 seconds. She'd practiced this. I sat in the gym cafe, my coffee getting cold, watching my sister-in-law frame me for something I hadn't done. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. My investigator just confirmed. Your father-in-law rented a storage unit yesterday at the facility on Morrison Avenue. He used your name, provided what appeared to be your driver's license, and paid for 6 months in advance with cash. We have photos of him signing paperwork. That's identity theft and fraud. We have him. I texted back asking what we should do next. Nathan's response came immediately. Don't touch that receipt in your car. Let it sit there. We need to catch them trying to use it as evidence. My guess is they'll orchestrate some situation where Sophie finds it. Probably soon. Be ready. I went home that afternoon and acted completely normal. Sophie was tired from her long day at the gallery, so we ordered takeout and watched a movie on the couch. She fell asleep with her head on my shoulder, and I sat there stroking her hair, wondering if this was one of the last peaceful moments we'd have before everything exploded. Sunday morning, Sophie left for brunch with Diane. An hour after she left, my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered cautiously and heard a woman's voice I didn't recognize. Is this Trevor Coleman? This is Amy Forsyth. I'm calling from the Riverside Casino Hotel. We have a charge dispute we need to discuss with you regarding your account. My blood went cold. This was it. This was the fake evidence being put into motion. I kept my voice neutral. I'm sorry, but I don't have an account with Riverside Casino. You must have the wrong person. Amy's voice took on a concerned tone. Sir, we have records showing you've had an account with us for the past 6 months with significant activity. Your wife, Sophie Coleman, is listed as an authorized contact on the account. She actually called us this morning asking about recent charges, which is why I'm calling you now. There seems to be some confusion. Sophie had called them? My mind raced. Had the family set up a fake casino account in my name and then told Sophie to call and check on it, creating a paper trail of her discovering my supposed gambling problem? I've never been to Riverside Casino, I said firmly. Someone may have opened an account using my identity fraudulently. I'd like to file a formal dispute. Amy hesitated, then said she'd flag the account and send me documentation. After I hung up, I immediately called Nathan and told him what happened. He was silent for a moment, then said, They're moving faster than we expected. They've created a fake casino account, they've planted the receipt, and now they're bringing Sophie into it by having the casino contact her. This is designed to make her distrust you immediately. She thinks she's discovering evidence of your secret gambling problem from an independent third party. It's brilliant and disgusting. I asked Nathan what I should do. He said to wait for Sophie to come home from brunch and see how she approached me about this. If she brings it up, deny everything calmly. Tell her you think someone is committing identity fraud. Don't mention that you know about her family's involvement yet. We need to see how far they'll take this. Sophie came home from brunch earlier than expected, around 2 p.m. She looked upset, her eyes red from crying. My heart sank. Whatever Diane had told her at brunch had worked. Sophie set her purse down and turned to face me, her voice shaking. Trevor, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Have you been gambling? I kept my voice calm and confused. Gambling? No. Why are you asking me that? Sophie pulled out her phone and showed me a text message from a number I didn't recognize. This morning I got a text from Riverside Casino Hotel saying there was unusual activity on an account under your name. I called them, and they told me you've had an account there for 6 months with over $40,000 in charges. Trevor, they sent me transaction records. They have your name, your birth date, everything. I took her phone and looked at the fabricated records. They were impressive, detailed spreadsheets showing gambling losses, hotel stays, restaurant charges, all under my name. Whoever had created these had done professional work. Sophie, I've never been to that casino. I've never gambled beyond buying a lottery ticket. Someone has stolen my identity and created a fake account. This is fraud. Sophie's eyes filled with fresh tears. That's what I told my mom, that it had to be a mistake. But she said I should check your car, check your wallet, look for any evidence before I just accepted your denial. She said a lot of spouses hide addictions and get very good at lying about them. Of course, Diane had said that. Diane had planted the receipt and was now coaching Sophie to find it. I felt rage building in my chest, but forced it down. Sophie, check whatever you want. Go through my wallet, my car, my computer. I have nothing to hide. She searched my wallet first, finding nothing but my actual credit cards and some cash. Then she went to my car. I followed her, my heart pounding, knowing what she was about to find. Sophie opened the driver's side door and started searching through the center console. When she pulled out the folded receipt that Claire had planted yesterday, her face went pale. She unfolded it and read aloud, Riverside Casino Hotel. March 8th, room charge $350, casino charges $2,200, bar tab $180. Her voice broke. This receipt is from last Thursday. You told me you worked late last Thursday. You said you had a deadline. But you were at a casino losing thousands of dollars? I took the receipt from her hand and examined it. The forgery was excellent, complete with the hotel's logo and what looked like a legitimate transaction code. I didn't go to any casino. I was at work. My coworkers can confirm I was there until 9 that night. Sophie, someone is setting me up. This receipt was planted in my car. She stared at me, wanting to believe me but clearly struggling with the evidence in front of her. My mom said you'd say that. She said that's what people with addictions do. They deny everything and claim they're being framed. I felt something crack inside my chest. Diane had preemptively discredited any defense I might offer. No matter what I said now, Sophie would hear her mother's voice telling her I was lying. Sophie backed away from me, clutching the fake receipt. I need some time to think. I'm going to stay at my parents' house for a few days. Don't contact me. Don't call or text. I need space to figure out what's real. She went inside, packed a bag quickly, and left without looking at me. I watched her car pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street. Then I called Nathan and told him what happened. He swore quietly. They've successfully separated you from Sophie and positioned themselves as her support system. Now they'll spend the next few days feeding her more fabricated evidence and coaching her toward divorce or annulment. We need to act faster than I thought. We're going to the police tomorrow morning with everything we have. It's time to stop playing defense. That night, alone in my house, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Sophie's face when she found that receipt, the betrayal and hurt in her eyes. Her family had weaponized her love for me, turning it into a tool to destroy both of us. Even if I proved my innocence, even if I exposed the conspiracy, Sophie would carry the trauma of these days forever. She'd always remember the moment she thought her husband had lied to her, had hidden a gambling addiction, had betrayed her trust. Diane and Robert had damaged their own daughter to get what they wanted, and that made me hate them more than anything they'd done to me directly. Monday morning, Nathan and I met with Detective Lisa Brennan at the local police station. Nathan had contacted her over the weekend and explained we had evidence of identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy. Detective Brennan was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened as I walked through the entire story, starting with Diane's accidental screen share and ending with Sophie leaving yesterday. I showed her the photos of the group chat messages, the video footage of Claire planting the receipt in my car, the documentation of Robert renting the storage unit in my name, and the fabricated casino records that had been sent to Sophie. Detective Brennan examined everything carefully, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This is one of the most elaborate fraud schemes I've seen in a domestic context. Usually we see family members trying to steal from each other directly, but this is a coordinated effort involving multiple people to manufacture evidence and destroy a marriage. The criminal charges here are serious. Identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, potentially breaking and entering if they use that duplicate key to enter your home. She paused. The question is, what do you want to happen here? Do you want to press charges against all of them, or are you hoping to use this as leverage to make them back off? I'd been thinking about that question all weekend. Part of me wanted to see Diane, Robert, Claire, Marcus, Linda, and Gregory all arrested and prosecuted. They deserved consequences for what they'd done. But another part of me knew that pressing charges against Sophie's entire family would destroy any chance of saving my marriage. Sophie would never forgive me for sending her parents and siblings to prison, even if they deserved it. Nathan spoke up before I could answer. We're hoping to use the threat of prosecution as leverage to get them to confess what they've done to Sophie and clear Trevor's name. If they refuse or try to continue their scheme, then we prosecute. Detective Brennan nodded. That's reasonable. Here's what I can do. I'll open an official investigation and bring them in for questioning. We'll confront them with the evidence and give them a choice. Confess everything to Sophie and sign an agreement to cease all contact and manipulation, or face criminal charges. We'll also require them to provide documentation proving all the fabricated evidence was fake, which Sophie can use if she wants to pursue a civil case for emotional distress. She picked up her phone. I'm going to start making some calls. Where is your wife currently? I told her Sophie was staying at her parents' house, which made Detective Brennan's expression darken. So they have direct access to continue manipulating her right now. We need to move quickly. Within 3 hours, Detective Brennan had coordinated with the district attorney's office and prepared arrest warrants for all 6 conspirators. She called each of them and requested they come to the police station for questioning regarding a fraud investigation. Diane and Robert arrived first, looking confused and concerned. Claire and Marcus came separately. Linda and Gregory arrived together. Detective Brennan put them in separate interview rooms and questioned each one individually, showing them the evidence we'd compiled. I watched through one-way glass with Nathan as each family member reacted to being caught. Diane tried to deny everything at first, claiming the group chat was a joke and that I'd misunderstood their intentions. But when Detective Brennan showed her the video of Claire planting the receipt, Diane's composure cracked. Robert immediately asked for a lawyer and refused to say anything else. Claire broke down crying, saying she'd just been trying to help her parents get Sophie back, that she didn't realize how serious the criminal implications were. Marcus was angry, insisting I'd manipulated Sophie and that everything they'd done was justified to protect her. Linda and Gregory both claimed they'd just been following Diane and Robert's lead, minimizing their own involvement. After 4 hours of interviews, Detective Brennan had gotten enough admissions to make the criminal case airtight. She gathered all 6 of them into one room and laid out their options. You've all admitted to varying degrees of involvement in a conspiracy to commit fraud and identity theft against Trevor Coleman. The evidence is overwhelming. You created fake casino records, planted false evidence, rented a storage unit in his name, and coordinated a systematic campaign to destroy his marriage. These are felony charges that carry significant prison time. She paused, letting that sink in. However, Mr. Coleman is willing to offer you an alternative. If you immediately confess everything to Sophie, provide documentation proving all the evidence against Trevor was fabricated, sign a legally binding agreement to cease all contact and interference with their marriage, and submit to supervised probation, he won't press charges. You'll have criminal records, but you won't go to prison. This offer expires in 24 hours. Diane found her voice first, and it was filled with venom. We won't let some outsider destroy our family. Sophie deserves better than him. We were trying to save her from making the biggest mistake of her life. Detective Brennan's expression hardened. You were committing felonies to manipulate your own daughter. That's not protection, that's abuse. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I file charges and arrest warrants, and you'll face a judge. Nathan and I left the police station and went back to his office. I felt exhausted, wrung out from watching Sophie's family try to justify what they'd done. Nathan poured us both coffee and sat down across from me. Now we wait. They'll probably spend the next few hours consulting lawyers and family, trying to find a way out of this that doesn't require them to admit everything to Sophie. But they're trapped. The evidence is too strong, and they know it. My phone rang. It was Sophie. I answered, and her voice was thick with tears. Trevor, my parents just called me. They said you had them arrested, that you're trying to destroy our family because you can't handle being caught gambling. They said you're manipulating the police and making up evidence against them. Trevor, what's happening? I don't know what to believe anymore. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of everything crushing down. Sophie, I need you to come to Nathan's office right now. Don't talk to your parents or anyone else in your family. Just come here. I have something I need to show you, and after you see it, you can make your own decision about what's true. She hesitated, then agreed. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes felt like hours. When Sophie arrived, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She looked between Nathan and me, her expression wary and hurt. Nathan gestured to the conference room. Sophie, Trevor is going to show you some things. I'm here as his attorney and as a friend to both of you. What you're about to see is going to be very difficult, but it's important that you know the truth. I pulled out my laptop and started at the beginning. I showed Sophie the video recording of Diane's accidental screen share, walking her through each message in that group chat. I watched her face change as she read her parents' words about fabricating evidence against me, about getting her back home, about making sure I looked like a con artist and a liar. She started crying when she reached Claire's messages about keeping her in the dark. Then I showed her the video of Claire planting the receipt in my car. Sophie's hand went to her mouth. Oh my God, that's my sister. She put that receipt there, the one I found yesterday. I showed her the documentation of Robert renting the storage unit in my name, the private investigator's photos and timestamps. I showed her the fake casino records and explained how the family had coordinated everything to make it look like I had a gambling addiction I'd hidden from her. With each piece of evidence, Sophie broke a little more. She watched her family's systematic betrayal unfold in documented detail, seeing how they'd manipulated her, lied to her, used her love for them as a weapon against her marriage. When I finished, she just sat there, tears streaming down her face, not speaking. Finally, she looked up at me. How long have you known? I told her about discovering it Wednesday during the video call with her mom, about the last 4 days of documenting evidence and building a case. I didn't tell you immediately because I wasn't sure if you were part of it. The messages suggested you didn't know, but I couldn't be certain. Sophie, I'm sorry I didn't trust you enough to come to you right away. She nodded slowly, processing. My parents did this. My sister, my brother, family friends I've known my whole life. They all worked together to destroy you and manipulate me. Why? Why would they do this? That was the question I'd been asking myself for days. Nathan spoke up, his voice gentle. From the messages, it seems like your parents never accepted that you'd left their immediate sphere of influence. When you married Trevor and built a life independent from them, they saw it as losing you. The trust fund was part of it, the money they felt entitled to control. But mostly it was about control itself. They wanted you back home where they could manage your life according to their vision. Sophie stood up abruptly and walked to the window, staring out at the city. When she spoke, her voice was hollow. My whole life they've been like this, controlling who I dated, where I went to school, what job I should take. I thought marrying you and moving out was me finally being independent. But they couldn't let me go. They'd rather destroy my marriage and break my heart than accept that I chose my own path. She turned to face me. Trevor, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you yesterday. I should have questioned why my mom was so quick to suggest you were lying, why the evidence appeared so conveniently. I let them manipulate me because part of me still wanted their approval, still wanted to believe they had my best interests at heart. I went to her and took her hands. You didn't know. They've had a lifetime to perfect manipulating you. This isn't your fault. Sophie squeezed my hands, then looked at Nathan. What happens now? Trevor mentioned something about charges? Nathan explained the deal Detective Brennan had offered. Confession, documentation, no contact agreement, and probation in exchange for avoiding prison. Your family has until tomorrow to decide whether they'll accept those terms. If they don't, they'll be arrested and prosecuted for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Sophie's face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. I want to be there when they give their answer. They need to see that I know everything, that they can't lie to me anymore. The next afternoon, we met at Detective Brennan's office, along with Diane, Robert, Claire, Marcus, and their respective attorneys. Linda and Gregory had already accepted the plea deal and signed the agreements that morning. When Sophie walked in with me and Nathan, Diane's face went pale. Sophie, honey, whatever Trevor told you is twisted. We can explain everything if you just listen. Sophie's voice was ice cold. I've seen the videos, Mom. I watched Claire plant that receipt in Trevor's car. I read every message in your group chat about fabricating evidence and manipulating me. There's nothing to explain except why you thought destroying my marriage was acceptable. Claire tried to speak, tears running down her face. Sophie, we were trying to protect you. We thought Trevor married you for money. We thought we were helping. Sophie cut her off. You were helping yourselves. You wanted me back under your control, living the life you planned for me instead of the one I chose. And you were willing to commit crimes and break my heart to make that happen. She turned to Detective Brennan. What do they have to do to avoid prosecution? Detective Brennan reviewed the terms again. Diane and Robert would have to sign affidavits admitting they'd fabricated all evidence against me, provide documentation proving the casino records were fake, agree to no contact with either Sophie or me for a minimum of 2 years, surrender any copies of my personal information, including that duplicate key, and complete supervised probation, including mandatory family counseling. Claire and Marcus had similar requirements. All 4 would have criminal records for fraud, even without prison time. Robert's attorney tried to negotiate. These terms are too harsh. Community service and a simple apology should be sufficient given that this is a first offense and a family matter. Nathan shut that down immediately. Your clients committed felonies that could have destroyed my client's career, reputation, and marriage. They coordinated a months-long conspiracy involving identity theft and fraud. These terms are generous compared to the 5 to 10 years in prison they'd face if prosecuted. Take the deal or reject it. But these are the only terms we're offering. Diane looked at Sophie one last time. If we do this, if we sign these papers and admit everything, will you ever forgive us? Will we ever get our daughter back? Sophie's voice broke slightly, but she held firm. I don't know. Right now, I can't even look at you without feeling sick. You need to sign those papers and stay away from me while I figure out how to process what you've done. One by one, Diane, Robert, Claire, and Marcus signed the agreements. They provided written statements admitting they'd fabricated evidence, forged documents, and conspired to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. Detective Brennan witnessed each signature and filed the documents officially. When it was finished, Diane tried one last time to speak to Sophie, but Sophie turned away. We left the police station together, Sophie's hand in mine, and drove home in silence. That night, we sat on our couch in the dark, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, Sophie spoke. I don't know how to move forward from this. My parents, my sister, my brother, they all betrayed both of us. How do I reconcile the family I thought I had with the family they actually are? I didn't have an answer. I don't know. But we figure it out together. Over the next months, Sophie went to therapy twice a week to process the betrayal and manipulation. She grieved for the family she'd thought she had, mourning the loss of parents and siblings she could never trust again. The no-contact order made it easier in some ways, removing the temptation to reach out or respond to their attempts at communication. But it also meant Sophie lost her entire support system overnight. Her parents' friends sided with them. Extended family members who heard a biased version of events blamed Sophie for choosing me over family. We leaned on each other and on the few friends who understood what happened. Nathan and his wife became our closest support system, helping Sophie navigate the grief and anger. A year after everything exploded, Diane sent a letter through her attorney requesting to meet with Sophie. The no-contact order was about to expire, and Diane wanted to attempt reconciliation. Sophie agonized over the decision for weeks before agreeing to one supervised meeting at Dr. Brennan's office with a therapist present. I waited outside while Sophie went in to face her mother. The session lasted 2 hours. When Sophie came out, her eyes were red, but her expression was resolute. She apologized, but she still doesn't really understand what she did wrong. She kept saying she was trying to protect me, that her intentions were good even if her methods were flawed. She doesn't see that manufacturing evidence and manipulating me was abuse. She sees it as misguided love. Sophie took my hand. I told her I'm not ready to have her in my life, and I might never be. I need her to accept that she destroyed our relationship, not you, not circumstances, but her own choices. Until she can truly own that, we have nothing to build on. 3 years later, Sophie and I are still together, stronger for having survived her family's conspiracy. We're expecting our first child, a daughter. Sophie hasn't spoken to her parents since that meeting, though Claire reached out last year with a genuine apology, and they've slowly begun rebuilding trust. The scars remain, but we've learned to live with them, to build a life based on honesty rather than manipulation. And every time Sophie feels uncertain, I remind her, we chose each other, and that choice was worth fighting for. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.